Celsius. With little finances and homes not adequate enough to keep the heat in, many families struggle during this season. The elderly are vulnerable and physically challenged to fight the cold during these days and nights. Young children must walk through snow and ice in order to get to school and return to a chilly and bitter cold home. Imam Hussein Development and Relief Foundation are determined to help. We will be providing households with coal to burn throughout the winter. $150 is all we need. $150 will be enough to provide heat and warmth for one household for the whole of winter. That's $150 for 4 months. You can donate via PayPal, bank transfer, or visit us at www.ihdrf.org to make a donation. Our Imams tell us the best of you are those who help those who are desperate. Help us spread the warmth. Thank you.
We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. This is a live show. We do take in all your questions. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask, please send it in via the WhatsApp. The email address ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv, or alternatively give us a call 0203 515 0199. Inshallah, myself and the Sheikh will be able to answer any of your questions. If you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, put your question in the comment section. Inshallah, the technical team will be able to give them to me later on. I'm your host Mohsin Shah, and joining me is Sheikh Ali Ma'ash. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum.
How are you doing this evening?
Alhamdulillah, fine.
MashaAllah. Sheikhna, let us kick off with, is a woman allowed to wear trousers and take to the streets and markets in accordance to the fatwa of His Eminence Sayyid Sistani?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. His Eminence the Sayyid mentions that it is not allowed for the woman to wear trousers if that trousers reveals the shape or the curves of the legs, in which it shows, if it's too tight, for example, and would normally causes arousal, temptation, and so forth. So yes, there is a problem with the trousers. There's a narration by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'll just take a part of this narration with this regard, where he states, "Ala ukhbirukum bikhayri nisaikum." Shall I tell you the best amongst you of women? قالوا نعم. قالوا بلى. The companions replied, yes. قال صلى الله عليه وآله إن خير نساءكم, the best of the women amongst you, till he reaches this part of the narration, المتبرجة مع زوجها, the one who is uncovered with her husband. That is the one who is the best of the women, who fills her face with makeup when she is in the presence of her husband. The one who wears, let's say, tight clothes, beautifications on her body when she is in the presence of her husband.
This is behind closed doors.
Exactly. Then the narration states, Al-Hisan an ghayrihi, that she is protected and covered when she's out with other opposite gender. In other words, she protects and preserves her hijab fully when she's outside. No makeup, no tight clothes, no beautification, no attractions at all. This is the best woman, or one of the best women, خير نسائكم, according to this holy prophetic narration.
Sheikhna, a question from Facebook. When is the death anniversary of Bibi Fatima Salamun alayha?
We have several narrations with this regard, but the main ones is the one on 13th of Jamad al-Awwal and the 3rd of Jamad al-Thani. So we have the second narration and the third narration. And of course we have a narration of the first as well, on the 8th of Rabi'ul Thani. So, of course, there are other narrations more than that, but these are the strongest ones. The first, the second, and the third.
Awesome. Sheikh, we're going to go to a short break. Join us after the break as we continue our discussion here on Ahkam SOS. See you after the break.
I have a question regarding keeping pictures of
Is it
scholars at
permissible to
home.
plant trees by or
Was
over
Islam
the graves?
established based on peace and
Is it permissible
non-violence?
to collect donations for charity projects from
Is it
individuals?
permitted to consume canned food imported from non-Muslim
Is there
countries?
an issue for men looking at non-Muslim women?
To have your questions answered live, call in on +44 2035 150199 or WhatsApp us on +44 7415 092155. Alternatively, you can also email us on ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv.
I have a question regarding keeping pictures
Is
of
it
scholars at
permissible to
home.
plant trees by or
Was
over
Islam
the graves?
established based on peace
Is
and
it permissible
non-violence?
to collect donations for charity projects from
Is it
individuals?
permitted to consume canned food imported from non-Muslim
Is there an
countries?
issue for men looking at non-Muslim women?
To have your questions answered live, call in on +44 2035 150199 or WhatsApp us on +44 7415 092155. Alternatively, you can also email us on ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. This is a live show. We're taking your questions. If you've got any questions at all, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, if you're watching at home on television, send in your questions via the comment section, send it in via the WhatsApp, the email address. Why not give us a call here in the studio, 0203 515 0199, and inshallah, myself and the Sheikh will be able to discuss and answer your question. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum.
Sheikh, we're getting more questions coming in from the WhatsApp. Salam, Sheikh. What is the ruling on girls praying with nail polish?
The problem is prior to the salah time is when they have to perform the wudu. That's the problem. If that nail polish
Blocks or prevents
blocks
water
على كل
touching.
حال the reach of the water to the nails, then of course that wudu is batil. They have to remove first the nail polish and then apply the wudu. Otherwise, there's no issue with it.
Ahsan. Sheikh, another question from WhatsApp. Is it permissible to do business with a person who was consuming alcohol and doing other haram work? Example, was a womanizer or so forth.
I mean, in the overall, if he's a Muslim, of course, we have to perform the nahy an munkar, to forbid the evil. That's, of course, one of the wajibat that we tell that individual that this is haram and so forth. Related advices and guiding that individual from the acts of haram. But if they're not Muslims, of course, we actually buy and shop from companies in which they sell, beside the bread and beside other groceries, alcohol as well. So there's no issue with it, but it shouldn't reach that stage of promoting evil or sin. ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان. So it shouldn't be reaching that stage of promoting vice and evil and sin.
I see. Sheikhna, a man voluntarily takes the responsibility of raising a girl, then she grows up into a woman. Is it obligatory on her to observe hijab in his presence? Is it obligatory on him not to look at her hair and not to touch her at all, according to his evidence, the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani?
The Sayyid mentions, yes, all that is obligatory, that he is not allowed to look at her or touch her body, for example, her hand, or shake her hand, let's say, because now she is baligha and in the age of adolescence, and she is now a woman. Ahkam of the woman now applies to her, because now she must perform the wajibat, refrain from the muharramat and forbidden acts, and she is now like a non-mahram woman to him. So yes, unless he does the aqd of nikah and so forth, in which she can become halal to him. So that's another way of making that halal by the aqd of nikah.
Ahsan. Sheikh, now according to his evidence, the Grand Ayatollah Sheikh Bashir Najfi, if one is certain that they have performed an invalidatory of the wudu, and is also certain he performed the wudu, but he's not sure which came first, what does he do in that situation?
The Sheikh mentions that it is not permissible for him to or for her to start the salah in this case, unless the one is certain that he has the wudu and the purity to enter the salah. If it's 50-50, then you can't really rely on it. You have to do wudu in this case.
Sheikh, now a question from YouTube. What is the ruling on consuming food with less than 2% alcohol? For example, vanilla essence.
You see, these alcohols are majority, if not all, are industrial and artificial alcohol. They are not actually intoxicating alcohol.
Okay.
So the one can consume it. And as far as I remember from my readings of Ayatollah Sistani's Masail in this regard, that he allows up to 2% of alcohol to be within the food ingredient.
But that's industrial type.
Exactly.
It's not
intoxicant, not allowed, absolutely, not even a drop.
I see. Ahsan. Sheikh, is it permissible to have an intercourse after menstruation and before washing ghusl, according to these eminence, Ayatollah Sheikh Bashir Najfi?
Yes, the Sheikh mentions that it's permissible, but to make sure that to clean the blood parts, if there's blood on that part. And that's of course after the menstruation is stopped. So now she's ready for the ghusl, the wajib ghusl, so she can go and pray and do other wajibat.
Sheikh, is it permissible for men to uncover parts of their bodies that cause immorality, such as being in their underwear, while they know that non-mahram women can see them?
Well, it is not permissible, and that's one of the examples of the men's hijab, in other words, not to come out in public in front of the woman with, let's say, short underwears that is attractive and so forth. They have to be careful that they don't cause that arousal of lust from the opposite gender and so forth.
Sheikh, a question from YouTube. Assalamu alaikum, brothers.
Salam.
When can a woman go back to praying after giving birth? And does she have to take or make an intention for a special shower, probably a ghusl, to go back to prayer?
Yes, after the giving birth, there's a
waiting period?
Waiting of what is known as the nifas. She's in nifas now, in which she remains in that state. And then afterwards, she goes back to the state of purity and tahara, and she does the ghusl.
Okay.
And then she goes back to the acts of wajibat and salah.
Sheikh, now this is from YouTube, what mean by Marifa of Imam al-Hadi al-Mahdi al Sharif?
Sorry, can you say again?
What mean by Marifa of Imam al-Hadi al-Mahdi al Sharif?
If he means ma'rifah, which means recognition, to recognize the Imam, of course, the one should reach that stage of recognizing the Imam of his time, the Imam of Zaman, by knowing the history of that Imam, the parents of that Imam, the objective and the aim of that Imam, the miracles and the karamat of that Imam, and the message of that Imam for this time. That if, as according to the narration, that لولا الحجة لساخت الأرض بأهلها. If there's no hujjah, proof of Allah on earth, this earth would be destroyed. So who is protecting this earth? Is of course the Imam of our time and the Imam of that time, or the Ma'soom, in which protects the earth from being destroyed with his presence and existence. Even if we don't see him, we don't have any connection with him physically, but being there is a protection for the whole humanity and the creation.
Ahsant. Sheikh, another question from YouTube. Salam, can a Muslim lady work in a cinema selling behind the counter?
Well, initially, if that cinema shows indecent films, that's number one. Does it show indecent films, immoral films? That's one side. And the other side, does she preserve her hijab with full hijab, for example? No makeup, no tight clothes, and so forth.
Yes.
So it requires a bit of more details in this regard.
Sheikh, again from the YouTube is popping off. Why are dogs unclean can we keep them as pets? That's from YouTube. As far as I know, Sheikh, first of all, dogs are part of Najsul Ain. They are always najis unless it's in running water. So if they're in a river or so. Secondly, you can only keep a dog for service. Now that is hunting or security, or if you're blind and you need a guide dog. We don't really keep them as pets, do we, Sheikh?
Indeed, the ulama in overall say that dogs are there are kept for security, as you mentioned, for the farmers, for example, the shepherds, other purposes in which is something that is required. I can't remember exactly, other than security, farming, there was hunting, Ahsant, you mentioned. Just to keep it as a pet, that's, of course, there's a problem with it, of course, yeah.
I see. Sheikhna, is it sufficient if there is widespread knowledge that the fish is caught using common permissible means?
Yes, if one is certain that in this country, for example, or in this city, they actually hunt the fish in the way in which the Sharia would agree upon. Let's say a human being would bring out that fish alive from the sea or the river and then dies outside the river or the sea, then that's fine.
Ahsant. Sheikhna, if the husband makes it conditional in the marriage contract that the woman is a virgin and afterwards it transpires that the wife is not a virgin, what would be his ruling?
In this situation, it is allowed for him to annul the marriage contract.
Just finish it there and then.
Exactly.
Wow.
That's because we have divorce and annul, fasakh and talaq. So it depends on the hukum and the situations.
Okay. We've got here a question from YouTube. Well, us Sunnis believe that he is yet to be born. This is about Imam Zaman, I believe. And you guys believe the son of Hassan al-Askari is Imam. How do we know that Shias won't believe in a false Imam Mahdi or potentially an Antichrist?
Well, initially they have to start from the beginning. Let's begin from the Saqifa time. That why do you follow other than Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam? Let's start from the first incidents that happened and occurred after the demise of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Where did the Sahaba go?
Yes.
They witnessed the bay'ah of Amir al-Mu'minin sallallahu alayhi in Ghadir Khum. And the narrations which is mentioned in their books about Aqdakum Ali. Ali is the most just amongst you. All these ahadith mentioned in Nabi al-Muwaddah, especially Nabi al-Muwaddah, important source, Tariq ibn Asakir, about praising Imam Ali alayhi salam in their books. Where is Imam Ali alayhi salam? Initially, let's talk about Ali alayhi salam. Why did the Sahaba turn a blind eye and ignored the Prophet's emphasis on his Ahlul Bayt? أُذَكِّرُكُمُ اللَّهُ بِأَهْلِ بَيْتِي. 3 times he repeated this statement. And then of course the Quran states clearly, انقلبتم على أعقابكم, but you indeed turned against your heels. So you actually ignored Ahlul Bayt as a result. And of course that will even reach ignoring his grandson Al-Mahdi Ajjallahu Farajahu Al-Sharif as well.
Sheikhna, is it permissible for a man to marry the niece of his wife without her permission?
That's one of the exceptions in the Sharia, that it is not permissible without the wife's permission. So he needs to get the permission from his wife to marry the niece. And of course, if he did the aqd without her permission, and after that the aqd of contract, he gained the consent from the wife, then the aqd is valid.
Sheikhna, if because of a particular condition one fears harm if he uses water, or would develop a physical defect or an ailment, or his condition would be prolonged, or its treatment complicated, what would be his duty? I think this is to do with wudu or with ghusl or so forth.
In this case, it is mandatory for this individual to perform tayammum instead of the wudu.
Sheikhna, on what materials can one perform tayammum?
The tayammum is valid on the ground soil, sand, clod, which is the lump of earth or clay, pebbles, rocks, but they're recommended to start with, as mentioned in the Masail of Islamiyya, to start with the soil, if not then sand, if not then pebbles and rocks and so forth.
Nice. Sheikh, from YouTube, can my wife be dominant in the bedroom? Is it Islamically halal? I think there's no issue in that as long as both mutually consent to what's going on. There's no issue with that. What is the ruling on regards to gelatin? Is it halal? Some gelatins have unknown substances. From YouTube as well, Sheikh. Gelatin.
Because gelatin origin is from the cow's bones or even pork's bones, then it remains najis. So the asala, its origin becomes and remains najis until we are sure that there's a transformation chemically, istihala has been made, performed, and you have to prove that istihala, that transformation chemically, then it becomes tahir. Otherwise, it remains najis.
From YouTube again, if the najasa after intercourse reaches our bed sheets or blanket, is it necessary to wash the whole blanket or just the part?
Just the part would suffice, of course.
Excellent. From YouTube again, Sheikhna, assalamu alaikum. At what age did Fatima Zahra assalamu alaiha get married, and what was Ali's age at the time of marriage? This is from YouTube. So the age of Imam Ali alayhi salam and Fatima Zahra assalamu alaiha when they were married.
Lady Fatima salamullah alayha, she was in her 10 years of age, and Imam Ali salam was in his 20s. But anyhow, we have a narration with this regard. So we have to differentiate between a normal girl and Fatima Zahra alayhi salam.
Yes.
The narration says that she used to grow up for, I think every day or every week, like a month. A month, like a year.
A week,
So she was a grown-up girl in which she was fit for marriage.
They said this with I think it's with all of the Ahlul Bayt, Aimma especially, that it was, they would grow a day in a minute, a week in a day, a month in a week, and a year in a month. They would grow very, very fast. It was one of their miracles and signs.
I mean, we can't compare ourselves with Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. They have exceptions with this regard.
Sheikhna, if one does not perform the janaba ghusl out of shyness or embarrassment or for non-availability of hot water, is it permissible for him to perform tayammum instead of ghusl?
If the ghusl constitutes discomfort, awkwardness, or even harm, then there's no objection to use tayammum instead in this situation.
You can?
Yes.
Okay, no problem. Sheikhna, the employer prevents me from performing the salah during office hours, and I do not finish work until after expiry of the prescribed time of the salah. What should I do under such circumstances?
If it's not possible for this individual to perform the salah during the office hours, then they have to leave this job. You cannot please your employer and displease your Lord, your Creator. Try to plan, try to organize your time in a way that you can pray. From the beginning, tell them, one of my conditions, that I have to pray 10 minutes a day. That's it. Just 10 minutes from break time. You have 1 hour lunch time, or let's see, even 20 minutes lunch time. You have the time to pray. And shorten your salah, less mustahabbat. At least try to do the wajib acts in the salah at least, because that's wajib. So we have to plan these before we get the job, before we go to the studies and so forth. There's a narration by the authority of Abi Ja'far al-Baqir alayhi salam. He says, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله, a prophetic narration, ما بين المسلم وبين أن يكفر, between the Muslim being as a Muslim and between becoming a disbeliever. Of course, disbelieving doesn't mean you become najis or you become like those who worship idols and so forth, but in anyhow a stage of disbelieving. ما بين المسلم وبين أن يكفر إلا ترك الصلاة الفريضة, is to avoid praying the wajib salah, is to abandon the salah, is to ignore the salah. متعمدا, intentionally, deliberately, أو يتهاون بها فلا يصليها, or he would take the salat lightly and not to pray it, like the question you mentioned. That in the office, yes, I have to, this is my job, I have to take care of my income, I've got things to pay, bills to pay, then I won't pray it, I pray it every day, qada at home. No. Between the belief and disbelief is the salah. We have to be careful. And that's in Wasal al-Shia.
Ahsantum. Sheikhna, question here from someone from Palestine. Someone who's Palestinian. I love Ali and I hate Muawiyah and Yazid. I'm Palestinian, Sunni. And I have recently learned about the Ahlul Bayt and what was done to Fatima Zahra sallallahu alayha makes me sick. And Sunni say she died of grief. How do I find the truth? That's on YouTube.
Basically, you have to go and read as much as you can. You need to do extensive research with this regard. Take the books such as Muraja'at. If he speaks Arabic, Muraja'at is in Arabic and English. I had the English copy, I give it to someone. Muraja'at is some kind of dialogue and debate between a Shi'i alim and a Sunni alim.
Okay.
With regard to the Ahlul Bayt and the Wilaya and so forth. Other books written by Dr. Al-Tijani Al-Samawi,
yes,
the Tunisian convert. Then I was guided ثم اهتديت لأكون مع الصادقين, to be with the truthfuls. I've read all these his books.
He's got 3 books.
Beautiful books in terms of the contents, in terms of the comparison between what the Shia think and what the Ahlul Sunnah think. So yes, you need to research with this regard and read these books and try to compare it with your own books as well. Go back to the sources in Bukhari, Muslim. For example, in Bukhari, when it mentions that Allah would be إن الله ليرضى فاطمة, Allah would be pleased if Fatima is pleased, ويغضب لغضبها, and He would be angry if Fatima is angry.
Yes.
So read these ahadith, try to analyze, and inshallah you will get to a good result and conclusion.
Sheikhna, from YouTube, why did Ali marry his daughter to Umar? Did he figure they wouldn't try and hurt him if he kept connections to them, even though he knew their intention? Did he do this strategically?
To which girl, sorry?
Why did Imam Ali marry his daughter to Umar?
There is discussion with this regard that did this really happen or didn't happen? So there's a bit of uncertainty with this regard. Even though if we say he did so, that is part of the imtihan. To test the other side, would be he just or oppressive?
I see. I think the main narrative is that it never happened. This is a bit peculiar. Next question coming from YouTube, Sheikhna. Is there any possibility to do tawassul with the Imam al-Mahdi and to get answer from him about any inquiry?
Yes, and indeed there is what is known as ruq'at al-haja, that you write a letter to the Imam alayhi salam. That's what we have in our books by our ulama, and many of the ulama did the same, the ruq'at al-haja, and they got their response that you write the specific way of writing the dua or the asking the Imam alayhi salam, and you write your haja at the end, and then of course you put this inside a well or in the river, in which you will get inshallah your hajat,
inshallah,
if Allah wishes.
Inshallah. Sheikhna, assalamu alaikum. Why does the ruling of being able to do mut'ah behind your wife's back even exist? What is the wisdom behind it, if there's any? That's from YouTube as well. Why are you allowed to do mut'ah even you don't have to tell your wife?
Basically, you see, in terms of the marriage and overall the polygamy or the marriage, the second or the third marriages, be it short or long term, the man has the ability to maintain more than one wife. He has the ability. Allah gave him this ability in which he can actually maintain more than one wife. But literally and practically, you would see that the majority of people only will stick with one wife, and they live happily. So these are ala kulli hal in which we see today some people misuse this type of marriage. Even some people would misuse their first marriage, and they would oppress their wife and eventually divorce. So we are between people who misuse and mistreat this type of marriage, and with those who think that this is some kind of oppression or some kind of ala kulli hal disrespect to the main wife, to the first wife. We have to be in a position that if we can maintain this, if we can do this peacefully without oppressing the first wife, if we can in somehow على كل حال, if we see that is needed, sometimes it's to do with taste and arousal of lust, and then one tries to goes around with other women. We have to see the conditions that if you are happy with your first marriage and with your wife, why should you go for the second and third and fourth, for example? So it really depends. Not everything is halal. It means I have to go and do it and enjoy it. We have to use common sense. We have to use wisdom. We have to use the adala, the justiceness with this regard. Allah ta'adilu fawahida. If you can be just, then stick to the one, and so forth. We have to look in this with this regard into different angles and to see which is more reasonable. Otherwise, majority of us brothers, sisters, ulama lived with one wife and they had children and they have lived a happy life without any issues.
Ahsantum. Sheikh, now my friend recently converted to Islam. Are there any videos to learn to pray and do wudu on this channel? She became a Shia. I want to teach her as well, but she lives 1 hour away from me. That's from YouTube. Whoever sent that, there are plenty of videos available in regards to the Shia fiqh on how to perform wudu, how to perform ghusl, how to perform salah. There's plenty available, inshallah. Just search on YouTube. And if not, we'll make for you. No, don't worry about that. We have a good production team, and inshallah we'll be able to make you some as well on Shia Plus. Sheikhna, do Shias consider wearing eyeliner for men a sunnah? That's from YouTube as well. I think they're talking about the surma or the kuhul.
Yes.
This was introduced to prevent the sun rays from touching the eyes, especially during war, when the men would sweat and the sweat drops would go into the eye, and then they would reflect the light back into the eye. That's why you see them wear the kuhul, and they'll wear, sometimes you see other warriors and soldiers, they'll put marks on their cheeks like this, and that's to stop from the sweat and the sun rays reflecting back into the eye. As Shia Muslims, do we accept this narration? Do we have anything like that in our narrative in regards to wearing kuhul in the eyes?
It has been mentioned in somehow for the men, they can actually wear kuhul with this regard. I mean, I've seen the narration in the non-Shia traditions that it is one of the sunnah to wear. So it is very useful. I've been advised even by some of the doctors who work with herbal treatments, that to wear kuhul for those who have issues with their eyes.
I see.
So it's been recommended for men, yes.
Sheikh, let's look at our Shia Plus video, inshallah, and see what issues we can resolve today, inshallah.
Oh no, I burnt myself. I've got a bandage. If I put water, it will make it worse. Can I perform tayammum?
There you go, Sheikhna. Unfortunately, one of our shabab has injured his hand, it's burnt, can't perform wudu, can't put water on it. Can he do tayammum?
Well, it really depends how severe is the situation. Sometimes you have to do tayammum and wudu, and sometimes just tayammum. So it depends on the situation.
I see. But normally, Sheikh, I think in that situation, you'd have to perform the wudu, but on the arm, you'd have to just go over the top. You wouldn't allow the water to touch it, but just put your arm over the top.
Yeah, what we have basically, it is known as the wudu al-jabira. That if you have a wound on your hand, for example, you have a bandage on it, then you do wudu, known as wudu al-jabira, and you just gently wipe on the place of the wound, and then you wash the hand.
Inshallah. Sheikh, another question here from YouTube. Sheikhna, is my wudu batil if I pour water more than 3 times over my arm? I think you're allowed to pour as much as you want. Isn't it the wiping that is only twice?
Yes, you can pour as much as you can if it doesn't reach the stage of israf, wasting water. But it is upon your intention that would you consider this as first ghasla, first wash, and then again you pour 3-4 times and then second wash, Of course, the third wash is not allowed, and some ulama would also consider as this is batil or haram. So yes, you can't make the third intention for the third wash as well. So only 2 washes. First is wajib and second is mustahab.
Nice. Sheikh, is there any supplication or prayer to treat anxiety? Since my mum died, my life is miserable. I miss my beloved mum and isolate myself from everything. That's from YouTube, and we pray for this brother or sister. I mean, losing a parent is always very difficult. But for anxiety, Sheikh, and depression, is there any dua you could recommend?
There are plenty of ad'iyah if the one can stick to this ad'iyah and continue reciting this every day or every night. Hadith al-Kisa would be a useful one, of course, every day with the family members, with the children, for example, sitting as well, joining them. I think mentioned before, dua al-amn, ya man tuhallu bihi uqad al-makarih, or the one who would untie the difficulties and so forth. So many ad'iyah in Fatih al-Janan, dua al-amn, dua hadith al-Kisa, dua al-tawassul, if the one can read the names of the 14 infallibles. These are all would, inshallah, heal the brother or the sister, inshallah.
Sheikh, from YouTube again. In the time of every Hujjah, the believers gave khums to Hujjatullah. How we in the time of Ghaibah of Imam give him the khums? That's from YouTube. So how do we give the khums to the Imam of our time right now while he's in Ghaibah?
Of course, the ulama today, the Jama' al-Shara'it, the fuqaha, the maraja' today represent the Imam today.
Yes.
With the niyaba am, the general representation, and then niyaba khassa, the special or the private representation, in which the 4 nuwab they had in the time of the Imam salamullah alayhi, before his major occultation, in that minor occultation, Ghaib al-Sughra. So in the major occultation, Ghaib al-Kubra, we give it to the ulama. And the ulama would, of course, they would take this money, the khumus, which is 20% khumus, 10% would go for the sayyids who are in poverty, who are in need, and the other 10% would go to general projects to build schools, hospitals, orphanage, for the hawzat, to nurture students, new hawza students, lecturers, seminary students, future ulama, and so forth. So it's all spent for the good cause and reason.
Another one here from YouTube, Sheikh. Now, with regards to leaving the house, can a woman go outside for a walk in the park if she is depressed, staying home all day? I suffer from anxiety a lot. Going for a walk helps me to remain calm. That's from YouTube. So I'm assuming it's a sister here that she likes to go for walks because it helps her calm down. She's in the house all day. She has some anxiety. Does she still need her husband's permission to leave just to go for a walk around the park and come back?
You know, it's something, a mutual agreement between the wife and the husband, that in overall I would allow you to go out for something that's reasonable. You know, sometimes the husband gives a general permission, general consent.
Yes.
Unless she wants to go, she wants to travel outside her city, let's say, 2-3 hours drive, then of course she needs the permission. But these are minor issues in which, or minor, let's say, going out to the market, to the school, take the kids, for example, to the park. If she has the general consent from the husband, there's no issue with it.
I see, excellent. Sheikh, if one does not know that his body or clothing is najis and learns of that after the salah, what should he do?
His salah is valid, there's no issue with it.
Yeah. Excellent. And Sheikh, if one performs the salah with a usurped garment on in a bid to protect his life, also that a thief would not take the usurped garment, would his salah be valid?
Yes, indeed, the salah is valid in this situation. It's allowed.
Sheikh, now a question here from the WhatsApp. Can a wife foreplay first with me first? I think between husband and wife, any form of showing love and emotion and stuff, it doesn't matter who initiates it. Both have, you know, the permission, I guess, to initiate. Is that correct, Sheikh?
Yeah, of course.
Fantastic. Sheikh, now more questions coming in here. Another question here from one of the viewers, and that is, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. I wanted to ask, what is the nafila that we are to recite in the morning, is it before Fajr or after Fajr?
Before Fajr, 2 rak'ah, nafila. You recite it and then you recite Salat al-Subuh.
Ahsant. Sheikh, another question. Assalamu alaikum. I heard that the Shias do not eat fish from the sea or certain fish only. Is this true?
Yes, we've mentioned this many times that we only eat the fish which has scales on the body of the fish with the scales. So we don't eat, let's say, shark fish or
eel.
We have
Lobster,
the
crab,
dolphins, for example. Exactly.
Dolphins.
Yeah. We have narrations with regard from Ahlul Bayt.
Mussels.
Exactly.
There's plenty. Another one from the WhatsApp, Sheikhna, and that is, Assalamu alaikum. What is the dua that is read on Friday mornings?
The dua which is read in Friday mornings, you have to go back to...
No?
Well, there are a couple of du'as, of course. There's a dua of Yawm al-Jumu'ah,
Okay.
1 page.
And
there's a dua of Nudba, as you mentioned, couple of pages. Yes, that's the main dua of Nudba, to be recommended to be recited every Friday morning, inshallah. Another ad'i, of course, as well. We have dua al-ahad, other ad'i, of course, with this regard.
Another question coming in from the WhatsApp, and that is, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Why do the Shias not pray Taraweeh prayer?
Because Taraweeh is a bid'ah. And according to the Sahih Ahlul Sunnah, that Umar stated that Salat al-Taraweeh is ni'matul bid'ah. He praises this bid'ah, that it's a good bid'ah. You know, very strange that to have the bid'ah good and bad. Bid'ah is bid'ah, innovation in religion. That's what the bid'ah means. So to have a good bid'ah or bad bid'ah, it doesn't make sense. It's like saying we have a good zina and bad zina. That doesn't make sense at all. So Salat Taraweeh, in this way, which is prayed in the non-Shia mosques, Ahlul Sunnah mosques, is a completely bid'ah and haram. And كل بدعة ضلالة, as they narrate, وكل ضلال في النار. So it's in hellfire.
MashaAllah. Another thing to mention, Sheikh, is that even at the time of Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he became a Khalif, he banned the Taraweeh prayer. He forbidden it. Yet, some still wanted to continue to pray, unfortunately. Sheikh, a question from the WhatsApp, from YouTube. Where do Shia believe he will come from? What country or city? And also, do Shia narrations of Imam Mahdi come from where? The Imams? This is from YouTube. So I guess they're asking about Imam al-Zaman. Where will he come from? What country or city? And where do these narrations of Imam al-Zaman come from? That's from YouTube. Shaykh, I've heard that when the reappearance happens, it happens from Mecca. It happens actually from the Kaaba on a Friday.
The Imam will emerge from Mecca, of course. He will recite a khutbah in the Kaaba in Mecca, and he will begin his journey fighting the enemies of Allah Azza wa Jalla, and then establishing his state.
Inshallah. And where do we get these narrations from? Who's
books from Shia sources, Mikyal al-Makarim, Ghaybat al-Nu'mani, other books of Ghayba mentions all these details.
Ahsant. Also, Sheikhna from YouTube, Assalamu alaikum. Sheikhna, if someone has a tic and can't keep still in salah, is his salah valid, or does he have to try everything to keep still? A tic, sometimes this is caused by Tourette's, or maybe they've got some habit where, sometimes they have to say something, or they have a little twitch or something like that, a tic. If they're praying salah and it happens, does it, invalidate the salah, or it's okay because it's a medical condition?
Well, if it doesn't change the posture of the salah in a way that it destroys the posture of the salah, then there's no issue with it, especially if it's a medical issue. But one should not do this intentionally because you're in the salah.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. And thank you to all of you for joining us on this episode of Ahkam SOS. Please keep sending in your questions. You can ask on any topic, or nothing is really silly or too taboo. We answer all of your questions. If you want a question answered in the opinion of a particular marja, please let us know, and we have contacts with the official representatives and the official offices of all our maraja, mashallah, and we'll be able to get you your answer. Send your questions via the WhatsApp, the email address. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook Live, put your questions in the comment section, and inshallah we'll be able to discuss and answer them. We're back again on Monday, 6:30 here on Imam Hussein TV 3. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Whilst this winter many of you will be enjoying the festive season, Afghanistan is going through a crisis. Every winter the weather will reach temperatures as low as -18 degrees Celsius. With little finances and homes not adequate enough to keep the heat in, many families struggle during this season. The elderly are vulnerable and physically challenged to fight the cold during these days and nights. Young children must walk through snow and ice in order to get to school and return to a chilly and bitter cold home. Imam Hussein Development and Relief Foundation are determined to help. We will be providing households with coal to burn throughout the winter. $150 is all we need. $150 will be enough to provide heat and warmth for one household for the whole of winter. That's $150 for 4 months. You can donate via PayPal, bank transfer, or visit us at www.ihdrf.org to make a donation. Our Imams tell us the best of you are those who help those who are desperate. Help us spread the warmth. Thank you.